Have you ever felt like you just can't go on anymore? Not because of anything specific, but because everything seems to have lost its meaning? I've felt that way before. If you've ever felt, or are feeling, the same way, know that you're not alone. First, I want to share a true story with you. This is my story from when I was younger, a young person standing on the edge of despair. It wasn't because life outside was chaotic or stormy, but because inside, I was exhausted and empty. It was a time when everything felt meaningless, and I felt like I didn't even want to keep living anymore. From the outside, no one would have guessed I was dealing with depression. Every day, I still got up to go to work, still smiled, still talked to people like everything was fine. Later, I learned that there's a term for this: smiling depression. It means someone can appear happy and optimistic on the outside while hiding their emptiness and pain inside. That was me, always wearing a smile, but inside, I was falling apart. Every morning when I opened my eyes, I felt like I was living a life I didn't choose. Day after day, I went through the motions, and I felt like a shadow, existing without truly living. I was so tired that even crying seemed impossible. Have you ever felt that drained? My sadness had surpassed any limit, to the point where my tears had run dry and my emotions had gone numb. Around this time, thoughts of ending it all started creeping into my mind. Many nights, I wished I wouldn't have to wake up the next morning. One night, I sat alone in my dark room, with a piece of paper and a pen in front of me. I started writing my final goodbyes to my loved ones. As each word and sentence slid across the page, my heart felt terrifyingly empty. It felt like everything inside had gone out. There was no pain, no fear, just complete emptiness. Looking back, I now understand that when someone sinks too deep into depression, their mind can be so exhausted that even emotions shut down, just like what I experienced that night. At that moment, I thought my life was about to end. But just as I was about to give up everything, something strange happened. In the stillness of that night, I suddenly heard a voice very clearly in my mind. "You're not done yet." At that moment, I was alone in the room, with no one else around. There were no sounds from the outside, no noises from any device or radio. And yet, that voice echoed, slow and clear, as if someone was standing right beside me. I felt as though someone had placed a warm hand on my shoulder and whispered into my heart, "You're not done yet." Strangely, I wasn't scared. In fact, in that moment, a calming warmth spread through me. My stiff body suddenly felt lighter, my shoulders relaxed, and for the first time in days, I took a deep breath. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. It felt like someone, or some unseen force, was right there with me, in that dark room. Where did that voice come from? Who was it? At that moment, I didn't know, nor did I care. I just knew that those 4 words, "You're not done yet," were holding me back. It was like an invisible hand pulling me out of the abyss, whispering, "Don't give up. You still have a reason to live, and there's still something meaningful waiting for you ahead." That night, I quietly folded the suicide note. I decided that I wouldn't end my life that night. The next morning, the world outside didn't suddenly change. The mysterious voice didn't magically turn my life around. But it stopped me from doing something reckless the night before. And now it gave me a glimmer of hope to try for just one more day. As the morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, the goodbye letter still lay on the table. But I started a new day. I walked to the window, pulled the heavy curtains aside, and opened the window wide to let in the fresh air. The morning light poured in, making me squint a little. It had been so long since I'd actively welcomed the light like that. Then I slowly made myself a hot cup of coffee. As I held the warm cup in my hands, I whispered to myself, "Today, try to find one thing to be grateful for." I sat down at the table and tried to write down one thing I was grateful for in my life. At first, My mind was so blank that I couldn't think of anything. But I reminded myself to keep trying. Finally, I wrote, "I'm grateful that I woke up this morning, that I can breathe, and that I can see the sunlight." My handwriting was messy, but for the first time in many months, my heart fluttered with a strange feeling, like it was getting a little spark of life. Looking up, through the window, I saw something small that surprised me. Outside on the balcony, a neighbor's little cat had somehow jumped over and was curled up, soaking up the sun on the railing. It looked so relaxed and cute that the corners of my mouth lifted into a smile. It was probably the first genuine smile I'd had in days. I softly said, "Good morning, little one." Of course, the cat didn't understand. It just wagged its tail. But that small moment warmed my heart. Later that morning, I did something I had been avoiding for a long time. I picked up the phone and called my mom. She was surprised to get my call. We talked for a while about the simple, everyday things. Her voice was still warm and loving. Hearing her voice, my throat tightened. Not from sadness, but from emotion. I realized that there are still people in the world who love and care for me unconditionally. That afternoon, I was scrolling through YouTube when I stopped to watch a short life lesson video. I don't remember exactly what it said, but I know the speaker talked about hope and the meaning of life in a warm, soothing voice. After watching it, my heart felt a little lighter, as if those positive words had watered the dry soil of my soul. And so, each day went by, and I made an effort to take one more small step. One day, I told myself, "Today, I'll take a walk around the block." And then I actually went outside, breathing in the cool air. Another day, I decided to tidy up my messy room, making it cleaner and more organized. These little tasks, seemingly simple, were actually quiet victories for me. No miracles happened. Sometimes I still had days of sadness, still had nights of crying without knowing why. There were times I doubted whether these small efforts could really pull me out of the darkness. But deep down in my soul, I could still feel a tiny light flickering. It was as if someone was holding my hand, gently guiding me through each difficult day. They weren't pulling me too fast, but patiently helping me move forward, one small step at a time. And I kept walking, day after day, holding onto that fragile light. Later, I realized that the small things I did back then, like writing down things I was grateful for, reconnecting with loved ones, moving my body, and listening to positive advice, were all methods that therapists recommend for overcoming depression. At the time, I was doing them instinctively, without any plan, but those small steps had quietly pulled me out of the pit of despair. Then, one day, I did something I never thought I would. I walked into a small church near my house. Before that, I hardly ever went to church. I wasn't even religious. But that day, I felt an inexplicable urge to go inside. Inside the church, the space was quiet and solemn. I hesitantly sat on a wooden pew at the back, silently observing the people around me praying. After a while, an elderly woman came and sat next to me. She smiled warmly at me, and we sat together in silence throughout the service. When the service ended, I stood up to leave. Just then, the old woman unexpectedly turned to me, gently placing her frail hand on my shoulder. She looked straight into my eyes, her gaze full of kindness, and softly said, "God is not done with you yet." My heart seemed to stop for a moment. That was exactly the phrase I had heard in the dark night. Only now, the word God was added at the beginning. I hadn't told anyone about that special experience, yet this stranger repeated the exact words I had heard, as if she knew everything. In that moment, I felt like God was using her words to speak to me. I was stunned, and then suddenly, all my emotions came pouring out. I hugged my face and cried uncontrollably. But this time, those weren't tears of despair. They were tears of relief and gratitude. I cried in front of a stranger in an empty church, but I didn't feel embarrassed or scared. The woman just smiled and gently patted my back to comfort me. When I looked up, she was gone, leaving only the echo of her words in my mind. In the sacred atmosphere, I sat back in my seat, tears still falling, but my heart filled with joy. In that moment, all my doubts melted away. I truly believed that God had spoken to me that dark night, and today, He sent someone to confirm that He was still with me and that He still had a plan for my life. Dear friend, if you're listening to this and feeling so tired that you think, maybe I don't have any reason to keep going, I want to borrow that old phrase and give it to you. You're not done yet. You might not need to change your whole life today. But if you're still listening, that means God still has a plan for you. Your life still has meaning, even if you can't see it right now. So please, don't give up. Give yourself one more chance. Just one more day. Right now, stand up and do one simple thing. Open the window and breathe in the fresh air. Drink a glass of cold water, or write down one small thing you're still grateful for in life. Then tomorrow, try one more small thing. Small steps will lead you out of the darkness. I believe that. And remember, you are not alone in this fight. If my story touched you, leave a comment or share your own story. And if you've ever heard a phrase, something sacred, in your life, share it below. Maybe someone out there is waiting for you to speak up so they can be saved. Thank you for listening to my story.